Welcome again to Flex or Fade. This is week 8, where Chris K and I are going head to head on whether or not a player in this DFS slate this week will be in our player pool. We did kind of switch it up a little bit this week, less about necessarily the overall slate and more about this one marquee matchup on the slate with Penn State and Ohio State going head to head this week. If you've already checked out the Kyle McCord Flex or Fade, you kind of know where this is setting up. But this week, Drew Allar, he is a flex for me, meaning he will be in my player pool. And that being said, Kyle McCord will not be in my player pool. So just to kind of dig into it, we've got Drew Allar here against the best defense at LC so far this season. It is a little bit worrying with that tough matchup. Him being a first year starter. This Penn State offense has notoriously been a little bit slow starting, especially when they're on the road. So those are some reasons to kind of have some hesitations. But with the rushing upside in terms of touchdowns, he scored a rushing touchdown in half of his games so far this year. And I think Notre Dame and Maryland really showed that this Ohio State defense is vulnerable, particularly between the 20s. They do clamp things down and tighten up towards the goal line. But they are vulnerable to allowing some decent yardage through the air. And I think we'll see that again this week. Allar threw for 4 touchdowns against Iowa, which is the toughest defense he's faced so far this year. He threw 325 yards and 3 touchdowns against West Virginia, another Power 5 opponent with decent talent on the other side of the field. It's not necessarily a slam dunk spot like a lot of our flex or fade combos are. It's a little bit more nuanced with these two. But Allar, being from Medina, Ohio, being a guy who was raised around the Ohio State program, I think he is going to be fired up for this 11 a.m. Kickoff, Central Time, best time zone. And I think that we're going to see this coaching staff really lean on his talents and allow him to open things up a little bit, something that I don't think we've seen this far from Allar. But what do you think, Kay? Where's your head at? And do you think Ohio State can be the first team to get a turnover off this guy?
I can't believe you pulled the Medina, Ohio on me. That's just a cheap shot there. These defenses are both really good. So then it comes down to a lot of different things in terms of scheme and creativity, talent, right? All these different things. The hard part is projecting how these two do, or these two teams do, when they haven't really played anybody. Ohio State played Notre Dame and they looked good. You said they gave up some yardage, potentially, yes. But if you look at all the games, the highest game total is in terms of yardage was 204 against Western Kentucky. They've clamped on everybody. But then again, right, they haven't really played a ton of difficult teams. I would say Maryland is competent. Notre Dame, obviously good, but their pass game isn't super strong.
Yeah.
With this is ultimately comes down to it is the yardage is going to be low, in my opinion, for Allar, which has been fairly consistent with his whole season, except for the West Virginia game where he was phenomenal. And this Vegas total is low. If Penn State scores 21 points, like Vegas thinks, with 2 stud running backs and a passing game that's going to get 200 to 225 yards at that rate, how does Allar hit that mark? And he has to score all 3. He has to add some rushing yards. I think the rushing yards is very possible. I don't see considering how that offense is built and how good Singleton and Allen are, I would be more inclined to think that they run the ball better, that they score those touchdowns, that this is a grinded out game, not a big play game, which Allar has shown not to be able to have high yards per attempt so far this season. So I'm against him. Shockingly, I would rather McCord, the non-runner, but it's more a Vegas thing. I wish this game would be higher scoring, but it just does not seem that way, and hence why I'm against an Allar who's probably going to land around 200 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns per Vegas. That's where my head's at, and that's why I am fading Drew Allar.
Yeah, that's, you make a sound argument, but we're interested in what the audience thinks here. Feel free to let us know in the comments, jump in the Discord, and get at us on the C2C server over there. So big noon kickoff, big game Saturday for these two. It'll be a fun watch for sure. Let us know where you're at, and enjoy this week's slate of games.